सभे चरण भक्ति वेदांत स्वामी श्रील प्रभुपाद की जय। जय विष्णुपाद परमहंस परिवजकाचार्य स्तोत्र सत हिज डिवाइन ग्रेस भक्ति सिद्धांत सरस्वती ठाकुर महाराज की जय। अनंत कोटि वैष्णव वृंद की जय। नाम आचार्य शिलादास ठाकुर की जय। प्रेम से कहो श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधार शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। श्री श्री राधा कृष्ण गोपीनाथ श्याम कुंड राधा कुंड गिरी गोवर्धन की जय। श्री वृंदावन धाम की जय। मथुरा धाम की जय। जगन्नाथपुरी धाम की जय। न्यू द्वारका धाम की जय। गंगा माई जमुना माई की जय। तुलसी देवी भक्ति देवी की जय। समवेत गौर भक्तवृंद की जय। All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Shri Gauranga. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Ajnanatimrandasya Jnananjanashalakhya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Namah Vishnupadaya Krishnadasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamiti Namne Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Bhasha. Thank you all for coming and staying. And as you heard, as you have heard from many of your loved ones, received so many messages about Happy New Year. So a Happy New Year from me to all of you too. Happy New Year. So we have circled the sun one more time. So we have completed another circle around the sun. That's what a solar year means. And New Year, as you know, is a time to reflect and to plan ahead. So Vas Prabhu gave a wonderful report when he was doing a Bhagavatam class a few days ago about how New Dwarka temple did. And you all contributed to that. So congratulations to all of you. One highlight that I want to point out is that this is the highest that the book distribution team from New Dwarka contributed this year. That was $500,000 plus one. I think that deserves an applause. So what that means is that a team of devotees is going out every day and touching so many hearts. They are giving out so many books that they contributed $500,000. They collected $500,000 and gave to the BBT. So congratulations, Savas Prabhu and New Dwarka community. Very good. And Savas Prabhu was also saying that they are already thinking about the next year. So this is what it takes, some kind of planning and then executing. I mean, how many of you work or have a business? Okay, all right, so that's a good chunk of money. And some of you are students. Okay. So if you're working, you are aware that you have to do an annual appraisal. If you have a business, you have to do kind of a balance sheet or profit and loss statement. So this is an accepted fact that at the end of a year, most of you file taxes as well. So at the end of the year, we have to file taxes too. So this is an accepted fact. So we are here at a temple, and obviously we're going to talk about some spiritual topics. But my question to you is, should we simply depend upon Krishna and let him take care of our plans? Or should we do some planning ourselves? What do you think? I'm sorry? 50-50? Okay, so we got to do our part. Yes? If you agree, say Hari Bol. All right, thank you. So we are on the same page now. Okay. All right, so but some statistics, so a lot of people, they get very enthusiastic when the new year starts. And they make what are called resolutions. So that's kind of a plan. But the statistics are not so encouraging. This next Friday that's coming, the second Friday of January. You know what that is called? It's called the Quitter's Day. So people make resolution and they quit on second Friday in January. About 25% they drop off in the first week itself. And about half of them, they drop off by the end of the month. And only about 8 to 10% stick it out until the end of the year. So people make plans, only on average about 9% will carry out those plans and kind of stick with their resolution. Why do you think so many people drop out? 91%, those who plan, they are sincere about it. Why do they drop out? Any ideas? I know you are devotees, you are not one of them. You make a plan, you stick with it. How many of you are chanting every day? Okay, wonderful. So we do it every day, right? We don't drop out. Okay. If you have taken initiation, then you are committed to chant at least 16 rounds. So we're doing it throughout. But why do you think people drop out? Okay, all right. So the enthusiasm fades. So that's one reason. What are some of the other reasons why people would not stick with their resolutions or stick with their plans? In general, we plan, not only just New Year resolution. Many times we make plans, we get really enthusiastic, but we can't follow through on that plan. What are some of the reasons? No results, because we don't see the results. We become impatient sometimes, and we abandon. Even if we have a small failure, we abandon the whole ship. Okay? Sometimes the goals may be too ambitious. Sometimes the objective may be very vague. It's not clear. Sometimes we may not have a plan to execute that goal. Sometimes there may be no support system. We need some support to carry out those goals. So these are some of the reasons. And another reason that we also deal with is when we are trying to make a change, when you're making a plan, a resolution, for example, a very common resolution that people make is to lose weight. And they will say, I will lose 50 pounds this year. Now that's a lofty goal. So what happens is, it's not simply about setting a plan and setting on a scale and checking whether weight has gone down or not. We got to change our habits, and habits are difficult to change. So that's another reason why people. So today we will talk about why people do planning. The answer to that is everyone is planning to be happy in this world. Even Krishna wants us to be happy. Prabhupada wanted us to be happy. He published a book called Chant and Be Happy. Right? Prahlad Maharaj wants the whole world to be happy. So seeking happiness, in Brahma Sutra also it says, Anandameo Bhyasat. So these instructions are there. We want to be happy. Now this happiness means bliss, ananda. Okay? So we want to be happy. Soul by nature is happy. Sat Chit Anand. Okay? So now we want to be happy, so we are making plans to be happy. Now those plans are made in this backdrop of time, of this resource of time. Right? So we do this planning once a year for 1 year. So we want to be happy, we make these plans, and then what happens? If we do not put in the resources required, if we do not have a support system, if we do not have an execution plan. See, planning is putting it on paper, thinking ahead. But then you got to organize. You got to put resources into place. We got to develop an action plan. So in our terminology that we use in the scriptures, there are three things: sambandha, Sambandha is where we are at, what our relationship is with the material world, with our surroundings. Then there is, at the end is prayojana or prayojan, which means the goal, the destination where we want to be. And in between this path that we take, that is called abhideya. So that's the path. So if any one of these three pieces are missing, if we do not know who we are, what we want to, where we are at, what our strengths are, what our limitations are, and if we don't know where we want to go, or if we don't have a plan to go from point A to point B, any one of these things are missing, we will not be able to go to where we want to go. You know, as they say, if you don't know where you are going, any road will take you there. Right? Okay. So we are going to look at what are the challenges, what are the difficulties, and what resources are available to us. What can we do? Is there any methodology that we can send? What does Krishna recommend? What does Prahlad Maharaj recommend for us to be blissful, and how can we carry out the plan that we make to be blissful throughout the year? So that will be the discussion. So before I get to that, just in case you haven't heard the Prahlad Maharaj's prayer in the 5th canto, chapter 18, text 9, he's saying, Swasti astu vishwasya khalah prasidatam dhyayantu bhutani shivam mitho dhiya. So this is the half of the prayer. In English, what it means is, let there be auspiciousness for the entire universe. That is the first part, Swasti astu vishwasya. Let there be auspiciousness for the whole world. He's praying for the whole world, not for himself, not for his own relatives. And he says, Khala prasidatam, let there be no envy, or let the envious people be pacified, prasidatam. So the envious people be pacified. And then he says, Dhyayantu bhutani shivam mitha diya. And let people work cooperatively, all living entities work cooperatively for mutual auspiciousness, for mutual happiness, you can say. So let they use their intelligence, let people use their intelligence for mutual happiness. So this is the prayer of Prahlad Maharaj, who was only 5 years old when he made these prayers. Krishna, in Bhagavad Gita, tells us repeatedly, he tells Arjuna, through Arjuna he tells us, he says, Pravakshayami te hitam. Whatever knowledge he's giving, I am giving it for your benefit. And he says, in the 5th chapter, last verse, Bhoktaram yagyatapsam sarvaloka maheshwaram suhrid sarvabhutanam gyatva mam shantim richati. So he says, I am the suhrid sarvabhutanam, I'm the well-wisher of everyone. And he says in the 7th chapter, this material nature is very difficult to tackle. This material ocean of suffering, he calls it, dukhalyam ashashvatam. And he says it's very difficult to overcome, but if you get on my boat, you can easily cross over it. Daivihi esha gunamai mama maya duratya mayam maam ye prapadyante mayam etam tarantite. So those who get on my boat, they can easily cross over this ocean. So he wants us to cross over this ocean of material suffering. Okay. Now, this time factor is it has certain characteristics. It can be on our side if we are aware of it, if we work towards it, but otherwise, it is fleeting away. If you look at that clock over there, by the time I say a word, 1 second is already gone. And I can't get that second back. So there's a conversation in Srimad Bhagavatam between two brothers. And you know one of them, you know very well, perhaps you know both of them. One is Dhritarashtra. Bhagavad Gita, that I'm sure you all are familiar with, the very first verse is spoken by Dhritarashtra. He was blind, he had no vision. On multiple accounts he was blind. He was blinded by his attachment to his sons. And then his brother is Vidura, a saintly person. So when this war is over, this Kurukshetra battle is over, Dhritarashtra is still hanging around, and he's there in the palace being maintained by his nephews. Yudhishthir Maharaj, who was the king, he very happily maintained him. And when Vidura returns from pilgrimage after the war, he sees his brother staying there, and he was disgusted. And he said, "What are you doing here?" And he starts to give him some advice. So the first thing he tells Dhritarashtra is that this time is avigyata. It's passing away and we don't even know about it. For example, if you get a haircut, then you know after a month that your hair have grown, but they are growing constantly. Our nails are growing constantly. So these changes in our body are happening constantly. Okay? And we are not even aware of it. If we don't make a conscious effort, we are not aware of it. So time is fleeting. The second characteristics of this time is, time creates fear in everyone. The end of life, which is called death, that definitely creates fear in many people's mind. A couple of weeks ago, I was here for a Bhagavatam class. I shared the results of a survey. There was a survey done in United States. The top 10 fears. 7 of the top 10 fears are related to death. People's own death, death of their loved one, in general fear of loss. So anything that happens that will lead to death, that's what people are afraid of. So in a developed nation, which is one of the most powerful nations in the world, people are afraid of death. So that is kind of the ultimate. But time, as we live in this world, it also manifests in terms of certain deadlines. Right? So for example, there is a deadline, you have an exam that you have to take. And if you don't plan your time well, when the time comes, the exam is at 9 a.m. and you haven't studied enough, it's 7 a.m., you're going to panic. So the fear that's created by these deadlines, ultimately by death. So the third thing about this is that no one can stop time, or no one can stop the influence of time, which is called pratikriya in Sanskrit. And Vidura says, in Sanskrit, he says, pratikriyana yasyeha kutaschit karhi chit prabho sa esha bhagwan kala sarve shamnaha samagata. He says, this time is not, there is no remedial measure. You cannot do anything about it. And not by any means, not by anyone. As you heard a saying, time and tide wait for none. No matter how powerful a person is, you cannot stop time. You cannot change the influence of time. And the fourth thing he mentioned about this time was, he says, time is powerful and it will take everything away. At the end of life, as you know, I'm not trying to start your new year with fear. We will get into positive side of it, but this is kind of the introduction, and this may serve as motivation. Sometimes fear serves as motivation. If we are afraid of something, then we are motivated to, at least not do it or take good care of it, ourselves and make good plans. So he says, time is powerful. It takes away everything. And there is another verse in Srimad Bhagavatam, which also kind of talks about a similar thing, and that is, Ayur harti vai pumsam, udyan astam cha yan asau, which means that our ayu, our age is taken away by the rising and setting of the sun every day. So when the sun is rising, sun is setting, we have lost that many hours. Okay. So as I said, most of us don't pay attention to these things. I mean, as devotees, you don't really have to worry about it. I'm getting to the positive side of it. But most people who are not aware, those who are not utilizing their time properly, time is just fleeting. Time is just passing by. They're not aware of it. Okay? So also we can see, based on the condition in the world, there is war going on between so many countries, Ukraine and Russia. What did these people do, those who were displaced from either country? People in Ukraine who became refugees. They lost everything that they had. Okay? So that's the pratikriya of time, that's the impact of time. I understand that there were some decisions made by certain people, but nobody predicted those things, and people lost. So this is how things are happening. War breaks out just, based on the whims of certain leaders or whatever that situation is. But ultimately, who suffers? The innocent citizens. Okay? So these are the 4 characteristics of time. So everyone wants to be happy, but time is fleeting. Sometimes we're not even aware of it, and it creates fear in people's mind. We cannot change its influence, we cannot stop it, we cannot hold it, and ultimately everything is taken away by time. So we have identified the problem, we understood it. Now what do we do about it? Is there a solution? How can we overcome this fear? How can we counter the influence of time? You heard early on that Krishna wants us to be happy. Prabhupada wants us to be happy. Prahlad Maharaj wants us to be happy. But then there is this time factor. What we heard about it is so scary. Right? It causes fear in us. Everything is going to be taken away. So what do we do? What's the solution? The solution is that we prepare ourselves to counter the influence of time. And what is the process for that? Now, happiness, let me ask you this. Does happiness depend upon material possessions? Somewhat. Sometimes certain things can give us happiness temporarily. But those who are wealthy, are they all happy? One of the wealthiest persons just had a divorce a couple of years ago, right? So, I don't know if they both became happy, if their children were happy when they divorced or not. But generally speaking, we know that material happiness does not last. Okay, you have heard enough about that. So what is that happiness that we should be seeking, and how do we get that happiness? So the happiness, as I said, is the ananda. It's the happiness that's experienced internally by our consciousness, by our soul. So how do we access that happiness? Now, as you know, Sudama Vipra, that Brahman Sudama in Sudama and Krishna's story, Sudama was very poor, but he was so content, he was so happy. Okay? Prahlad Maharaj, he was being subject to so many difficulties by his own father. He was tortured, literally. But he was so content, he was so happy. He did not even wish bad upon his own father and other people who were torturing him. Haridas Thakur, just about 500 years ago, he was being beaten by the soldiers of this Nawab, the Muslim ruler. And he was praying, please, don't punish them. They don't know what they are doing. Please save them. So they were happy. They were not doing it out of any compulsion or anything. So I think you are all in agreement that Ananda does not depend upon our material growth, but it depends upon our consciousness. So if we want to grow spiritually, or if we want to develop our consciousness, what are the means to develop those consciousness? How can we overcome this fear that is caused by death, which is ultimately caused by time? So again, back to Bhagavad Gita, you might know this verse, very famous verse, chapter 2, text 40. Neha vikram nasho asti pratyavayo na vidyate swalpam api yasya dharmasya trayate mahato bhayat. He says, on this path, now Krishna, as you know, in the second chapter, after Arjuna accepts him as his teacher, he begins to give advice to Arjuna. And the first piece of knowledge that he gives is the difference between matter and spirit, between body and soul. And then he says, I am going to give you what he calls Buddhi Yoga, which literally means a process of connecting with the divine through intelligence. Yoga of intelligence. And Prabhupada translates it as Krishna consciousness, or devotional service, Bhakti Yoga. And because in chapter 10, Krishna then calls that Buddhi Yoga as equates Buddhi Yoga to Bhakti Yoga. Also in between, in chapter 5 and 3 also we see how these yogas are, different yogas are combined. So Buddhi Yoga is devotional service. So what this verse says is that when we take to this process of Buddhi Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, devotional service, there is no reversal, there is no loss. We're not losing anything. There is no diminution, there is no decrease. And even if we make a little bit of progress, swalpam api asya dharmasya, what will happen? Trayate mahato bhayat. You will get freed from the biggest fear in life. And I shared with you the survey, the top 10, 7 fears are related to death. So death is the biggest fear because that's when we will lose everything that we have. So this process so beautiful, and Krishna gives early on in Bhagavad Gita. And he tells in Bhagavatam also, he tells Uddhava, he tells about this process. Now this is a really smart deal according to Krishna. He says in Canto 11, chapter 29, text 22, he says, Esha buddhi matam buddhir manisha cha manishinam yat satyam anritteneha martyenapnoti mamritam. He's saying, Esha buddhi matam buddhir. This of the intelligent is the intelligence. And of those who are smart, this is the smartness, by which they can trade their temporary body, our body is temporary, right? We're not going to take it with us. And they can get a permanent spiritual body. Isn't that a really good deal? If you had something that was going to die, it was going to fade away, it was going to stop working in a couple of years, and somebody said, I'm going to give you a gadget that will work for life. It will work forever. It will never break. Won't that be a great deal? So that's what Krishna is offering to Uddhava. He said, this process of Bhakti Yoga is such that you can give up this material body and I'll give you that eternal spiritual body that will never decay, never deteriorate, and you will be happy forever. Who would not want such a deal? That he says, intelligent of the intelligent and smartest of the smart, they want to go for this deal. So why should we not? So the solution to the problem, how we can overcome the fear of time, is take to this process of Bhakti Yoga, devotional service. I mean, if you're here, you're already aware of what that process is. In this yuga, in this day and age, that process works simply through chanting, crying out to Krishna and trying to connect with him by saying, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So now we have talked about the objective, happiness, ananda. We talked about the potential problem, which was the time factor. And we have talked about a solution, which is take to this process of devotional service. Now, let's say if we are one of those people who want to make a resolution as it's beginning of the year, and our resolution is related to devotional service. We want to make progress. And let's say you want to set a goal for yourself. If you're already initiated, you are chanting 16 rounds, But you can still have some more goals. You might want to set a goal that I want to read 3 cantos of Srimad Bhagavatam in this year. Some of you who are not chanting 16 rounds yet, you are at 8, you might say, I want to increase that to 10 or 12, depending upon your capacity. Okay? So these are all spiritual goals. I want to hear more of Prabhupada Vani or the Vani of my teachers, other teachers that are out there, their advice on spiritual topics. So you can have any one of these goals. I want to learn how to play mridanga. I want to learn how to play harmonium. I want to sing every day for 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Okay. So we plan, these are auspicious things. We will make progress on devotional service. We will follow instructions of Prabhupada, we will follow instructions of Krishna himself in Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. But now, how do we make sure that we do not become those 91% people, those who can't keep their resolutions? Do you want to hear that methodology, how we can do it? You don't seem so convinced. Yes? All right, so let's go for it. So you heard about the problems when our goals are vague, there are too many, there's no support system, we get discouraged, the enthusiasm fades. So the methodology that's used is we come up with 1 or 2 very, very, very important goals. They're called wildly important goals. Now again, just based on these examples that you have, let's say if we have book distributors here, they want to set a goal that I want to distribute, say, 10,000 books this month, in this month of January. That's a decent goal to pursue. As I gave you other examples, so you decide what goal you want to set. But these goals should be very, very, very important. Okay? And just have 1 or 2. Don't have too many. Just 1 or 2. Okay? If you have never done this before, I would stick with 1. If you have done it before, you can have 2, maximum 3. Okay? So have these wildly important goals. And then having this goal that I want to distribute 10,000 books, I can't simply be checking at the end of every day, how many did I distribute? Because if I don't go out on distributing books, I will not distribute any. Let's take example from the other side. You also have to take care of your health. Let's say I want to lose 5 pounds this month. So by simply stepping on the scale, you will not lose weight. So you have to come up with what is called, or what are called, lead measures. So what is it that I do that will lead to weight reduction? What is it that I do that will lead to 10,000 books distributed at the end of the month? So whether I distributed 10,000 or not, I will know at the end of the month, but that will be too late. I won't be able to do anything about it if I didn't do it. Same thing, 5 pounds I want to lose in January. I'll find out 31st January if I did or not. There's nothing I can do if I didn't. So, but if I make a plan like this, that every day I am going to go out for book distribution between 9 and 5 o'clock, and I'm going to go to these places. Now, you are not looking at how many books you are distributing every day. You are making a plan that will get you out of bed, out of your room, and to that place where you have to go and do this. Likewise, if you are losing weight, you have to come up with a measure that I will walk every day, or I'll go to the gym every day for 20 minutes or 25 minutes. So when you do these activities, I will also take care of my diet. So you have to be specific. I will eat this, I will not eat that. And that you can check every day. You can check every meal, you can check whether you did or not. So this is something that you can work on. This is under your control. The other measure, which is 10,000 books, that's not under your control. You also know from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, text 47. Karmarne vadikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana. So if we simply talk about the result, but not talk about our karma, as you rightly said in the beginning, is 50-50. We got to do our part, okay? And not simply the result. I'm not saying that ignore it, because if you ignore the result, you will not get there either. We have to look at both. We have to look at 10,000 books, and I'm getting to that point next. But we have to come up with an action plan that will get us to our goal. So now the third step is we have to continuously monitor what we are doing. And that monitoring should be so easy. And in this temple, I think it was around Janmashtami Rath Yatra time perhaps, they had a kind of a barometer. Their goal was to raise, I believe, $200,000 or whatever it was. And each time you came, you will see, oh, so we are here, we are here, we are here. So it was so easy to see. So that is called a kind of a scoreboard. So if you are thinking of, again, losing weight or learning mridanga, and you come up with a plan that I'm going to spend 15 minutes practicing mridanga every day, you should have a scoreboard, a barometer type of thing. And that should be updated every day. And when you see it, immediately within 5 seconds you can tell whether you are getting there or not. The last step in this is we need some discipline. We need a rhythm. There has to be some accountability. What if you don't do it? Who are you reporting to? And that takes me also to the next step, that when we share our plans with others, when we make them public to others, you decide which ones you want to share, then we feel more accountable. So in this case, what we do is we need a mentor. We need somebody who will guide us. This mentor, you can need a mentor, you can have a peer, a person of your age, same level, but somebody whom you are accountable to. That person will ask you, how did you do today? How did you do? So you can decide the frequency, how often you want to meet. Once a week with this person, once a month, depending upon what kind of goals you have. If you have a monthly goal, then you should meet at least once a week. In some cases, once in twice a week. So, have a very, very, very important goal. Break it down and develop measures that are within your control. Have a scoreboard where you can monitor your progress, and have a team, have a mentor or a guide with whom you can meet on a regular basis and review your goals. So what this person will do, what the mentor will ask you, if you did not reach that goal, why did you not reach that goal? And you can also make pairs, two of you can get together. And the mentor this is how the mentors do. They will ask you, okay, so what's your plan to achieve this next week? And how can I support you? He is not going to tell you what to do, or she is not going to tell you what to do. But what's your plan? What came in the way? Why were you not able to do it? And how can we do it better next week? And how can I support you? So now back to the spiritual path that we are on, path of devotional service. We have a system. Prabhupada has created that beautiful system throughout ISKCON. He trained many of his disciples. His disciples are now training other disciples. And the process is called taking initiation, committing ourselves to a particular person and committing ourselves to this process of devotional service. Just a few minutes ago, you were all convinced that devotional service is the way to overcome fear of death, fear of any kind of loss. Devotional service is the way for bliss that the soul is hankering for. So now, the next thing is upon us. We have understood what the objective is. We have understood what the problem is. Now we have also come up with the methodology, how we can do it. Now it's all up to you. And as I said, Prabhupada has created this society and this system where there are people available for free. One of the most popular resolution is health related, especially losing weight. And to lose weight, people join a gym which costs anywhere from $500 to $600, and they get a personal trainer. So they are meeting with somebody one-on-one, and they tell them what to do based on where you are at. In spiritual life also, it's a science. We need somebody who can gauge us, who can guide us based on where we are at. So remember the three things that I said: Sambandha, Prayojan, and Abhideya. The first step is Sambandha, to know who we are, where we are, what we do, why we exist, the reason for our existence. And then you set a goal and then create a plan. These mentors, they are available for free. You don't have to pay $500 to $600 a month as you do for personal trainers. They are available in any ISKCON temple for free. And they are so kind and generous with their time. They guide us, they help us what to do. So I was fortunate to have found such a mentor about 22 years ago. I got initiated right here in this temple in New Dwarka. And I'm so grateful for that person guided me so well. I'm able to pursue that path, and I'm also able to share this with others. So if you're already initiated, it's your responsibility that you don't hold on to this wealth that you received, but share it with others. Okay? All right, thank you very much for tolerating me. And you perhaps knew most of this already, but I thought since it's New Year, so let's kind of review what the status is in terms of resolutions that people make, why they are not successful, and if we want to go on that path. So I tried to share with you what I have learned over the years and what I have realized over the years. So Happy New Year again, and thank you for being here. Hare Krishna.